Hi, everyone. I am Kandis Porter, and today we are going to talk about building logic into your project schedule. When we're talking about logic, we're talking about predecessor and successor task. So a predecessor task must come first, and a successor task will follow. This is really important because you can build this into your Smartsheet schedule or your MS project schedule, and it will help drive your dates automatically. So you're not constantly manually updating those dates. If you haven't come to this channel before, welcome. And I would love it if you would subscribe by clicking the bell below. We are going to start by looking at a few slides, and then we will go out to Smartsheet to where I can show you a few things regarding how to set up your project schedule. Thanks for being here with me today. Okay, so let's cover some of the basic rules for using logic in your schedule. First and foremost, this is very simple to add into your project schedule. So adding logic, you'll hear it called logic, dependencies, predecessor, and successor task. Again, that predecessor task comes first, successor comes second. You just need to add a row number to the predecessor column in order to link a couple of tasks, or sometimes referred to as activities by Project Management Institute. For example, if you want the associated task in row 4 to begin after a task or a milestone in row 2 of your schedule, then you simply need to put the number 2 in the predecessor column of your project schedule. This is what it looks like, just a small little screenshot from Smartsheet. Again, we're going to go out and take a look momentarily. But you'll see here, we've got project kickoff here in row 2 of Smartsheet. We have a predecessor column, and we want to link row 4, so activity 1 for deliverable 1. We want it to begin after the project kicks off. So we're going to put a 2 in there, and that's going to link the task. A few notes, you can have multiple rows as predecessors. So you simply need to add a comma between them whenever you're entering them into the predecessors column. So for example, we can't start this one task until 3 tasks above it are completed. And so we want to link all 3 of them. So we will just add 3, 6, and 7, for example. For the critical path to work properly, every task in your project schedule, with the exception of the first task, should be linked to another. Now, I showed you in the previous slide that I like to include a task as my very first one called project kickoff. I put in 0 duration. And when we get approved to move forward with project kickoff, I put the current date in there, and that will drive all of the other dates if I've properly set up logic or linked the task via predecessors in the project schedule. So a milestone, when you hear me talk about a milestone, I'm talking about a task with 0 duration that marks some significance. So we want to have it in our project schedule. Project kickoff is a perfect example of a milestone to include in your project schedule. So summary task or parent task, sometimes they are called parent task, they should never be assigned predecessors. So they are a summary of the task that are indented below them. So you don't want to assign any predecessors at that level. There may also be times where you need to change the relationship type documented in that predecessor column. It is going to default to finish to start relationship, which means when one task finishes, the next one can begin. There are several other types, however. So there are finish to start. Again, that's the default. If you just enter the row number in the predecessor column, this is what it is assuming you want to happen. And so it is going to set it up as a finish to start relationship. When the previous task finishes, this one will start. However, there are 3 other types: start to finish, start to start, and finish to finish. So you would enter them in a slightly different way in that predecessor column. For example, a finish to start. Let's say we are working with a huge concert provider, and we may have use for each of these different types of relationships. So let's say finish to start, the default. We need to build the stage at the concert venue before we can set the speakers up because they're going to be set up on the stage. Makes sense, we would use a finish to start. After the stage is built, then we can begin setting the speakers up. Start to finish. Let's say we want to keep selling concert tickets until we start to set the venue up. Because once we're setting the venue up, we're setting it up for the number of people that have already purchased tickets. So in that case, we may want to use a start to finish relationship. So when we start setting up the venue, we finish ticket sales. So we could enter that into our project schedule with an SF. So we would put 3, if 3 is the row that we want to use as the predecessor task to another, we would put 3 as the row number and then SF to have that a start to finish relationship. We may also want to have start to start relationships. For example, when we start setting up the food vendors, we also want to start setting up the drink vendors. So maybe we link them together as a start to start relationship. Finish to finish. Let's say we have safety inspections that are going on while we are setting up the actual concert venue. So as we finish a certain aspect of setting up the venue, we have the inspectors there making sure everything is safe and good to go. That inspection cannot be finished until all of the setup is finished. So maybe we're doing them in parallel, side by side. And so we would want to link them as a finish to finish relationship. So those are some examples. Again, it's going to default finish to start. So you could either just put the row number in there, or you could put the FS behind it. You could then set up a start to finish, if it makes sense, by putting an SF as the predecessor task. You could set up the start to start by putting an SS, and then you could set up a finish to finish with an FF. So those are the different types of relationships that you could build into your project schedule. Now, what we want to do after we have all of the predecessors in our schedule, we want to make sure that we have the estimated duration for completion of task. Now, this defaults to working days. I'm going to show you how to set up working days when we go out and look at Smartsheet. So just know duration defaults to working days. So that's what that D means. So for example, here, when we're looking at activity 1 under deliverable 1, it says 5D. That means it takes 5 days to accomplish that. So having the predecessors and the duration both built in is what is driving the automation of your start and end dates. With that being said, our start and finish dates are being calculated automatically, and the only one that we want to manually type in is going to be that first non-summary task. So project kickoff, as you're seeing here on the screen, we're kicking this project off on January 24th. We want it to be the actual date that we get approval to kick that project off. We can manually type it in there. You'll see 0 in the duration column because it's a milestone only. And then the rest of the dates below are going to automatically update based on the predecessor relationships that we have in there. If you're looking at the predecessor column and it only has a number in there without the relationship type, again, you can go ahead and assume that it's a finish to start relationship. So once we finish this task, this one can start. I cannot stress enough, do not manually update your start and finish dates in your project schedule once you have built in the logic. That's going to break the connection and suddenly your schedule will be a mess. So you do not want to adjust your start and finish dates. If you need to make adjustments, what you can do is increase or decrease duration in your project schedule. So if we find out that a task is going to take longer than we initially expected, maybe we need to change it from 5 days to 10 days. Increase the duration. Do not manually change your start and finish dates. That's important. You can also add a lag into your schedule. So this is the amount of time where a successor activity, so this is the one that will come after the predecessor activity is completed. You can say, I want it to be linked to another task, but not start for 5 days after that task is completed. Now, you can build that in very easily into your schedule. I'll show you where you can enter that. Just a couple more notes. Critical path. So what is the critical path and why is it important? This is something that's very important when you're using waterfall style project management, because it is going to show you the longest path of your project. So the tasks that are driving your finished date based on the relationships that you have established as predecessors. Now, love Smartsheet, love MS Project in that you can go to your Gantt view and see where does our critical path fall. Now, again, it's important because if you're looking here and we are saying that task 1 needs to be completed before task 2 and task 3 can begin. So it's got a finish to start relationship for both of those tasks. However, task 5 cannot begin until task 3 and task 4 are both completed. Well, task 4 is going to finish well before task 3 if we're looking at this moving over time. We need to know that each day task 3 delays is going to delay the start of task 5 day for day. That's the same for task 1 as well. So our critical path, it helps us identify areas of priority and risk because we know that if we delay on any of the tasks that make up our critical path, it's going to push out our end date. So it's going to delay our project. Whereas in this example, if we need a little bit more time for task 2 or task 4, that's okay, because task 5 still has to wait to begin until task 3 is completed. So that's why we need to know our critical path here. They can change. So as we start to enter our actuals into our project schedule by increasing or decreasing our project durations and marking them as 100% complete, this may change. So let's say that we finish task 3 earlier. Well, we still have to wait to start task 5 until task 4 is completed. Our critical path has just changed. So now our critical path would be task 1, 2, 4, and 5. So it's dynamic. It's going to be moving as your project is in execution. You can also have multiple critical paths, especially on more complex schedules where you have a lot of different resources accomplishing a lot of different tasks in parallel. You can have multiple critical paths. So again, it's important to know how to look at this within Smartsheet or MS Project so you can make better decisions, and it will prevent you from delaying your schedule when at all possible. Okay, here we are in Smartsheet, where I want to show you a few things that are going to set you up for success whenever you are working on setting your project up. This is a project. So whenever you go out to Smartsheet and you're creating something new within a workspace, you want to make sure that you're setting up a project. It is going to allow you to make sure that you have the ability to set up the predecessors and some other important things. Where I want to start, I want to show you this is grid view within the project. You need to make sure that your project settings are set up to your needs whenever you start doing this. So I'm going to switch from grid view to Gantt view. This is where it's going to give me some options here to edit my project settings. So if you look at this little cog in the upper right-hand corner where it says Edit Project Settings, I'm going to click on that. And here you go, Dependency Settings. It's right here at the very top. You need to make sure that your dependencies are enabled. So your dependencies are enabled so that it is driving your project dates. So make sure that that box is checked. And then it's going to ask you your predecessor column. So I always name mine predecessors, and there are templates that you can use. I have an entirely separate video on using a Smartsheet project template to get it set up from scratch. So just make sure that this column aligns with where you're going to be putting your predecessor task. You also want to make sure that your duration column is selected appropriately, because that is going to link to your predecessors and drive those dates within your schedule. Also, make sure that your working dates align with when you will actually be working on the project. So again, when we're talking about the duration on the project, if it's a 5-day work week, Monday through Friday, for example, 8-hour days, that's what's going to be driving those dates here. So if we're working a 4-day work week or a 6-day work week, we need to edit that. So if you click this edit button, it shows you options. When are the working days? And maybe we have a couple of crews, or we're working 7 days a week if we're using that concert venue example. If we are, we would want to click Saturday and Sunday. If we're working longer than 8-hour days, we want to actually adjust that. And we can go ahead and enter any non-working days that would be linked to a holiday or a down day for the company. And that way it's not accounting for them as it's driving your dates whenever you're including those predecessor relationships. So set this up to what's actually going to happen with your project. Click OK. Again, make sure dependencies are enabled. Click OK. And you'll see here, just like the screenshots in the actual slides, we have our project kickoff here in row 2. It's a milestone, and that's the only date that we're going to manually enter. Now, we now have that linked to our first activity here under deliverable 1 because we have the row number in there. So we have row 2, if you're looking over here on the left-hand side, as a predecessor task to row 4. When we're talking about not entering predecessors into a summary or a parent task, this is what we're talking about. So where it says deliverable 1 here, I can shrink that up or I can expand it. This is a summary. So this tells me the start date of when we're starting on deliverable 1 based on the task that are under it, and the end date. So again, it shows me it will start on the 24th. We expect for deliverable 1 to be completed on the 10th. And overall, it's going to take 14 days. So we don't want to enter predecessor on those summary or parent tasks, okay? Now let me show you what happens if we want to change the relationship type. Again, it's defaulting to finish to start relationships, which means when task 2 is completed or marked at 100%, then activity 1 can begin. If we wanted to change it to a different relationship type or include a lag in here, I can go to the predecessor column and click this little pencil, and look what it does. It gives me some more options. So it shows what it's linked to and that it is defaulting to that finish to start. So what if I want to have it as a start to start? I can do that. I can say, let's have this as a start to start relationship. So let me switch it here, click OK. You'll see that that now shows up as a start to start relationship. Now let's say that we need a lag between activity 1 and activity 2 here. We currently have them linked. So again, if we're looking at the row numbers, if we're looking at row 5 here, which is activity 2, we're saying that when row 4 is completed, which is called activity 1 here, that then we can have activity 2 begin. So once that date ends, then it's going to move forward here. And you'll see that the 28th is a Friday, and we only have a 5-day work week. So Saturday and Sunday are down days, which means this one won't start until the 31st. But let's say we actually want 5 working days as a lag, which means we don't want to start activity 2 until 5 days after 5 working days after this one is completed. So let me double click this, go into the little pencil, and let me add a lag here. So I'm just going to put 5 because we want it to lag by 5 days. I click OK on that. And now look, it pushed that date out to Monday, the 7th. Again, 5 working days is what that lag shows. And now it updated to show that it's a finish start relationship plus 5 days as a lag. When I'm talking about don't manually code your dates, the second I manually code something in these dates, it's going to break the logic. So I'm going to show you, for example, let me say I'm just going to go in and change February 14th to the start date to the 22nd. Ooh, manually changing start date will result in the removal of all predecessor relationships on this row. Do you wish to continue? When you get that, say, no way, cancel. So if we really do need to increase the duration here, so maybe it's not going to finish or end on time. Maybe we need to increase the duration. It's actually going to be 40 days. That'd be quite a delay. You're going to see it increased the duration 40 days and pushed out that end date. Now, if there are successor tasks or tasks that come after when we increase the duration, you'll see all the dates change. So let me go down here to activity 1, row 9. It's linked to our project kickoff here. So you'll see row 2 is here. And then a lot of these other tasks are going to come after it. So let me increase the duration here from 12 days to 15 days. We're still in our planning phase. Subject matter expert says it's actually going to take us a few days longer. Now, when I click enter on this one, 15 days, it is going to change this row and any successor tasks that are linked to this one. Okay, ready? Watch. You just saw a bunch of dates change. That's what happens. That's what I'm talking about when we're talking about logic, having everything linked. So we're still in the planning phase. None of this work is being done yet. So as we're increasing and decreasing and linking things, I'm going to click save here because let's say we're actually starting the project and we want to set a baseline. When we're talking about a baseline, we're talking about comparing our planned state, which we have right here on the screen, to our actual state. So as we start moving throughout and doing the work here, then we're always going to know, are we ahead of schedule? Are we behind schedule? What's happening? So I'm going to show you how to set this up. Again, I'm in Gantt view here. I'm in Gantt view because some of the options are only available in Gantt view, not grid view. And you're going to see baselines up here. Clicking on baselines, and you'll see it gives me the option to show baseline in Gantt. The current project start date is the 24th. The end date is April 8th, so 4/8/22. And right now, because we haven't done any work, you're going to see that it's on track. So I simply click set. And I'm going to go now to grid view because it added some columns whenever I did that. Grid view. You're now going to see that there's a baseline start and a baseline finish. And then it shows me the variance here. So it shows me the variance. How many days off are we? How many days off are we? So baseline start, baseline finish. These are our planned dates. We want to be updating the duration, or we can add in some lags as needed. So this is where we're going to continue to update the actuals. So let's say 100%, our project is now started, and we are working on activity 1 here. And we realize right off the bat, we said 5 days. This is going to be 10 days. So I'm going to need to change that to 10 for duration. It's going to automatically update the dates below as far as where it's linked. And you are going to now see variance. If there's a minus in front of it, it means that we are 5 days behind schedule. So you'll see here that now our dates are intended to start on the 24th and February 4th. And originally our baseline, so these were our planned dates, it was intended to start on the 24th and end on the 28th, which means we're 5 days behind schedule. So I definitely encourage you to set your baselines at the beginning of the project. Set your baselines at the beginning of the project so you know if you're on schedule or not. Now I'm going to go back to baseline, so I have to switch back to Gantt view. And I'm going to click on baseline. You can reset your baseline if you'd like, or remove it altogether. You cannot set multiple baselines. So MS Project allows you to have baseline 1, baseline 2, baseline 3. Smartsheet isn't there yet. So you have the option of resetting it. If someone says, I only want to compare actuals to where we're at here and now, we've made some tweaks, approved some change requests to our project. So you can go ahead and reset it, and it will start to compare to your new plan. I like it here because it's really easy to see if you just want to come into baselines. If someone says, hey, where are you at as far as behind schedule, project end date? Come back to baselines. It shows you right here. We're 5 days behind schedule. We thought we'd finish 5 days sooner than we actually are. So you can click OK there, or you could reset it or remove it, whatever your desire is. Lastly, I want to show you the critical path. So we talked about the critical path being the longest duration through our project schedule. So our start date, and it makes up our end date. And it's important to know which activities are on the critical path, because if one of them delays, it's going to delay our overall project end date. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to click on these 3 red boxes that show that they're linked together. That means you're turning on your critical path, and it puts red boxes around the activities that are on your critical path. So you'll see here our milestone, that's our project kickoff, is on our critical path. You'll see that it shows activity 1, activity 2, and these align with the rows over here. So this one is 40 days in duration. It shows that it runs over time with our calendar months and dates up above here. So you can now scroll through and see which activities are on the critical path. What you can also do, if you have your baseline set, is to look at where it was originally planned to be when we set the baseline. So you see these little bars here, that shows where we were planned to be when we set that baseline. So we're on track for all of these. If you look up here, we're off track on some of these. So that is the importance of the critical path. So if we say, oh, wow, we definitely need to assign some more resources. Wow, 40 days now for activity 3, that's going to put us behind schedule. We need to get that down to 10 days because we need to hurry this up. We can't be delayed on our project that much. So I'm going to decrease the duration to 10 days. Let's assume we put some more resources on there. Going to click enter, and you're going to see here we are. It's no longer on the critical path. So you can also use the critical path for some scenario planning and to see what happens. If we can get this activity down to 10 days by adding additional human resources to it, what's that going to do? And as we talked about, your critical path is dynamic. It's always shaking and moving based on the reality of your project. I hope that you learned a little something today about predecessor, successor, task, how to build logic into your project schedule, how to set some baselines, how to use your critical path. So the more you make the project management tool work for you, the better off you are. No one wants to manually manage a schedule or the dates associated with it. So again, little things, making that technology work for you is going to be a huge time saver. And trust me, you'll impress people if you're organized. Thank you so much for joining me again, Kandis Porter. And please subscribe to this channel if you haven't had the opportunity. I am also going to put a recommended video up here in the corner. Go ahead and click on that if you can. If you have any interest in seeing me set up the project schedule from scratch or using a Smartsheet template, that may be helpful for you.